I know some of y'all have been waiting for this video. And after episode 5, and after episode 5, and and after episode 5, I wasn't expecting too much out of episode 6. It's a damn shame because the Viltrum War is the Viltrum War is maybe the peakest of the Viltrum War is maybe the peak of Invincible. Anyways, everyone is getting ready for war. Cut to track. Cut to track. Cut to track. Talking to a damn skull like a crazy person. Cut to only men making a damn grave for a. Cut to only men. Cut to Nolan making a damn grave for the men who abuse his two sons. I, sw- I swear, Nolan doesn't want to be forgiven. Even if you knew bro for years, I don't think the father. Even though you knew for, even though you knew bro for years, I don't think a father. I don't think a father in their lifetime will ever bury a man who beat the shit out of their sons. Oliver is mad. Oliver is mad as hell. Obviously, Oliver is mad as hell. Love this. Obviously, Oliver. Uh, Obviously, Oliver is mad as hell. Love this change from the comic. That Oliver doesn't love this change from the comic. Oliver isn't like always glazing Nolan every 10 seconds. If you really think about it, Oliver doesn't even know Nolan, so it really does make a lot of sense if he doesn't like him at all. Because even if Oliver is like 2 years old, in his mind, he probably left like years ago. He looks maybe around 15 years old. Without he looks like he looks like he grew around 15 years without his father. If you To him, he grew up 15 years without his father. Nolan says Nolan says that he has Nolan says they have to stay in the planet for a while. Nolan says that Nolan Nolan says that Nolan says they have to stay in the planet for a while to so that Mark can recover. Oliver is mad as hell. Imagine being stuck. Imagine being stuck with your deadbeat father, no hub, no nothing. At his. Imagine being stuck in a planet with no. Imagine being stuck with your deadbeat father, no plat. Imagine being stuck with your deadbeat father, no hub, no nothing, and at his age, I would be dying. He says that he has never seen Mark, but bro, that's a damn lie, especially for Mark, who always gets his ass whooped. Cut the tech jacket and Island. Cut to tech jacket and Alan still playing video games, planning to escape. You also see you also see Nolan trying to bond with you also see Nolan trying to bond with Oliver by trying to feed him. Obviously, Oliver is not gonna open up that easily, and you know what and you know what was the first thought of Nolan after this? To whoop his ass. But no, he really wanted to train him, and I love how Oliver every time he and I love how every and I know and I love how Oliver every time he has a chance to bring up that Nolan is a deadbeat, and I love how Oliver every time he has a chance to bring up that the fact that and I love how Oliver every time he has a chance to bring up that Nolan is a dib, and I love how every time that and I love every time that Nolan has a and I love every time that Oliver has a chance to bring up that Nolan is a deadbeat, he takes that chance. Of course, Nolan wins, but he gets. Of course, Nolan wins, but we get a good scene between father and son. Oliver heard Nolan say that his birth mother. Oliver heard Nolan say that the birth mother of Oliver was a mistake. And I just love the emotion. I know some of y'all I know some of y'all relate to Oliver's situation. This is why I said before the life of Oliver is basically. This is why I said before, if you really think about it, Oliver's life is really trash. Cut to Alan and Zoe trying to escape. Alan, Alan calling the Viltrumite nerds. Alan, this you? You needed a Zenkai boost to hang with them. You're not that guy, bro. Steve and the NPC Viltrumite tries to jump them, but after a little bit of struggle, the space nigga shoots the NPC. And damn, that blast is never stopping. What if it what if it's hit what happens what happened when it what happened when it's what happened when it eventually what happened when it eventually hits another planet or something? Steve leaves. Steve leaves awesome. This isn't over type vibe. Come to no. Oliver and Nolan brought Oliver and Nolan are finally bonding over food, but Nolan tries to connect even more by bringing up his mother. Oliver shuts that shit down. I just love how different Nolan acts around Oliver compared to Mark back in the season 1. It's more like Oliver really wanted it's almost like Oliver really wanted Nolan to be a good person, but already it's almost like Nolan. It's almost like Oliver really wanted Nolan to. It's almost like Oliver really wanted him to be a good person, but already knew that deep down was a bad person. They see that Mark isn't recovering well, They find a so they need to get some food. They find they find an insect mother with some egg. No one tries to end her, but Oliver uses his brain and say and Oliver uses his brain and say not to kill her, to not to kill the only source of to not to kill the only source of food for Mark. Cut to Alan. We see the goat, Battle Beast. They talk about the war. They're getting their ass whooped, to be honest. They need their star players. Nolan opens. Nolan opens. Nolan. Nolan. Nolan opens up about his side chick. How going to the planet was a mistake, but the birth for Oliver wasn't a mistake. Oliver or Oliver finally opens Oliver finally opens up to his Oliver finally opens up to his dad and asks Oliver finally opens Oliver opens up to his dad for the first time. Like I said, the only person that could actually forgive Nolan would be like I said, the only person that would realistically forgive Nolan would be his family. Cut to a montage of a but cut of a cut of a cut to a montage of the bench player actually winning the war. I'm sorry. Are Vegemite I'm sorry. Are Vegemite frauds now? I'm sorry. Are Vegemite frauds now? We even see Drag bitching like we even see Drag bitching with his we even see Drag bitching with that trash ass voice. I'm sorry, but that doesn't fit, bro. I don't mind him talking to the skull or making him look crazy, but his voice just doesn't fit him. We get a weird scene between Nolan and we get a weird scene between Nolan and Oliver talking about clapping some bug cheeks. No, bro, don't do it, please. I'm telling you, after Oliver's teens in the comics, he kind of fell off, to be honest. Eventually, Eventually, Mark finally wakes up, and we do get like a really cool scene of Mark worrying that his family was actually dead. It's a cute scene, and I really, it's a cute scene. It's a cute scene, and I really love it. We also get to see the new design and Oliver fake ass beard. I can't even be judging, bro. I can barely grow what he has. And let's talk about Mark's new look. Well, to be honest, it's okay. Obviously, in the comics, it's better, but it's still okay. He kind of looks like a crackhead, but the he kind of looks like a crackhead, but it's he kind of looks like a crackhead, but he kind of looks like a crackhead, but he did survive like a big ass stab to the gut, so that's fine. And I do like how he basically has the same hair as his dad. I do love how the show is paying attention to. I do like how the show is paying attention to how much Mark really does look like Nolan. and I did realize a few things, and I did realize a few small details compared to the comics and the show. Around the end of the war, around the end of the war, I see a. Around the end of the war, I saw a few. Around the end of the war in the comics, Oliver looks a bit older. At the beginning of the war, he looks more like 14, and around the end, he looks more around 16 to 17. But here, he looks exactly the same age with like a few pubes in his face. So maybe they will actually slow down his aging like way more compared to the comics. Because if you really think about it, him looking like a 30-year-old and older than Mark doesn't really make sense if you compare it to other half half bug, half Viltrumites we will see in the future. Anyways, we see Optimus Prime getting attacked by the Viltrumite. It's time for me to talk about my and it's time to talk about the my problem with the and it's time to talk about my problem with the episode. The fights in this episode were really mediocre to bad. Now, if I showed you like any shot from this battle, would you really believe me this was a war? Anyway, Strike sends his minion to fight Optimus Prime. We see dudes sneaking with and from the drop locked in, sneaking and from the drop locked in, sneaking dude with a right hook and holds and and hold on, why is bro built like that?